A very small number of critical conversations has a disproportionately large effect on the outcomes in our life. And one of the most difficult kinds of conversations we face in life is breaking bad news. In this video, I'm going to react to Vishal Garg, the CEO of Better.com, as he fires 900 employees over a Zoom call. Hi everybody, I'm Bruce Lambert from HowCommunicationWorks.com. This is a channel where I teach you about communication skills so you can improve your relationships, succeed at work, and be more confident. By now, many of you may have seen this video because it's gone viral. I first saw it on TikTok about a week ago. This is the CEO of Better.com on a Zoom call firing 900 of his employees. And one of his employees recorded this Zoom call and put the recording on TikTok. When I first saw it, I commented, well, this isn't perfect, but it's not horrific. But a lot of people in the comments said, oh no, you're crazy. This is the worst thing in the world. So I decided I better go back and have a closer look at it. And by now, this guy has said he's taking time off and two of his senior staff have quit and he's been dragged across all social media. So this has been a disaster for him and the company. Let's see why.
Thank you for joining.
So it starts badly. Two of the first three words out of his mouth are, He should have scripted and rehearsed the beginning of this talk. It was that important. It should have been completely polished. He already has revealed he's uncomfortable, he's nervous, and he doesn't really know what he's going to say.
I come to you with not great news.
I come to you with not great news. This is the understatement of the year. It's terrible news for the 900 people who are about to be fired. When he says it's not great news, he's minimizing the impact, something that he does throughout the call.
The market has changed, as you know, and we have to move with it in order to survive.
The market has changed and we have to move with it in order to survive. Well, who's the we? There's 901 people on this call and 900 of them aren't going to work for the company in about a minute. So who's the we? He's talking about himself. And throughout the video, he has a great deal of difficulty distinguishing between himself and the people he's talking to. So the market has changed. He's also trying to set up the idea that this is a choice that although he technically made it, he was forced into it by external circumstances beyond his control.
So that hopefully we can continue to thrive and deliver on a mission.
So that we can continue to thrive and deliver on a mission. Who's we? Again, the 900 of the 901 people on this call aren't going to be working for the company in about a minute. So there's no we. It's just I, but he can't distinguish between I and we.
This isn't news that you're going to want to hear.
This isn't news you're going to want to hear. That's classic Breaking Bad news. We teach people when they're breaking bad news that they should warn people. They should give what we call a shot across the bow or a warning shot, which is to say, the classic thing is to say, are you sitting down? Basically, it's to allow the audience to prepare themselves to hear difficult news so they can emotionally process it and focus.
But ultimately, it was my decision, and I wanted you to hear from me.
I think this is the best part of the video for Mr. Garg. He says, ultimately, it was my decision. I wanted you to hear it from me. That's appropriate. He could have had one of his subordinates do this. He could have had the head of HR do it. He could have done it in an email, but he came and he did it because he knew it was his responsibility. So this was the right thing to do. I can't blame him for doing it. You know, Woody Allen said 80% of life is just showing up. So he showed up for this difficult conversation. He ended up not doing it very well, but you have to give him credit for doing it.
It's been a really, really challenging decision to make.
This is where everything goes bad for him. It's about him. He now goes on to talk about how hard this was for him. Whereas an empathic response is thinking about the other people, thinking about the people that the news is impacting, not thinking about how hard it is for you to break the bad news. When we teach doctors and nurses how to break bad news to patients, it's very hard to break this bad news, and it's hard on the person who's breaking the bad news. But you can't expect sympathy from the people who are receiving the bad news. My friend Tom Gallagher says, you got to get your lovin' elsewhere. And this guy needed to get his lovin' elsewhere, but he's trying to get sympathy by talking about how hard this is for him.
This is the second time in my career I'm doing this, and I do not want to do this.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares that he's a two-time loser, and nobody cares that he does not want to do this. The impact, he's still going to be a millionaire CEO when this call is over. The 900 other people on the call are going to be unemployed.
The last time I did it, I cried.
Who cares? Nobody cares. This is totally irrelevant and self-centered.
This time I hope to be stronger.
Nobody cares. I mean, it's unbelievable. I think this is what really caused people to have such a negative reaction. All this focus on himself and how hard this was for him. It's really unbelievably narcissistic, self-centered, narrow-minded, lacking in empathy, etc.
But we are laying off about 15% of the company.
You gotta be kidding me.
So here you hear the voice of the employee who's recording the call. It's just heartbreaking. You got to be kidding me. He's dropped the bomb now. We're laying off 15% of the employees.
Efficiency and performances.
And then he says market efficiency and performances. Here he's just like saying random words from a business dictionary. Market efficiency and performance. It doesn't mean anything. It's just corporate doublespeak. It's like he doesn't have anything to say. He's lost and he's just saying random words.
And productivity.
And productivity. Throws in one more random business word.
The company?
And in the background, you hear the employee saying, after all we've done for the company. So if he was genuinely empathic, he would have said something like, I know this is such a hard decision, especially after all you've done for us. He could have anticipated the emotional reaction of the audience and then named those feelings and empathized with them. He should have huddled up with his staff before this call, thought about what the emotional reactions would be, what the questions would be, and then the whole presentation should have been focused around breaking the news and then empathically responding to those emotions that he knew that he had anticipated the audience would have, but he does none of that.
If you're on this call, you are part of the unlucky group being laid off. Your employment here is terminated effective immediately.
Your employment here is terminated effective immediately. This is the passive voice, which means he's not saying, I'm terminating your employment immediately. He says, your employment is terminated, as if some invisible force is terminating them. It's that the passive voice is used to avoid accountability for an action.
What does this mean for what's next? You're going to get an email from HR, askhr@better.com, and your benefits. For all U.S. employees, we're providing 4 weeks.
And the employee in the background says, this is not real. He could, again, if he was really empathic, he could have said something like, I know this must seem unreal to you, but he's not empathic.
Oh my God, I can't believe this.
1 month of full benefits.
It's heartbreaking to hear the impact on the employee.
And 2 months of COBRA, for which we will pay the premium. So 3 months total benefits if you elect for COBRA.
This is not real. Oh,
Thank you for each and every one of your.
So he describes what's next. This is relevant to whenever you break bad news, you want to describe, what the future consequences are, what's next, and so on. So this is totally appropriate. Although he's blown the first part of it so much and people are so much shocked by the news that they've just been fired that they can barely process this information about COBRA and severance and so on.
Individual contributions to Better.
I skipped over that a little bit, but he says he wants to thank you for your individual contributions to Better.com. But at this point, that rings completely hollow, given the way that he's delivered the rest of the message and the fact that he's firing them.
I wish the news was different. I wish we were thriving enthusiastically as we were at the beginning of this year. That's not the case.
I guess this isn't horrible. He's just he's expressing regret that he has to do this. This is, I suppose, appropriate.
And I am sure you will leave us. And
this is not real.
I mean, it's very robotic. If you just think about his delivery in general, it's very, very robotic. He didn't practice. He doesn't want to be doing it. There's no feeling. It's all very flat affect and monotonic. I'm sure you will all do well when you leave. It's very odd, the affect. It's almost like he's medicated.
More successful, more fortunate.
After all we did.
And he can't look at the camera. He's sort of looking down. It's just non-verbally, it's terrible.
Luckier in your next endeavor. I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you for everything you've done for Better.
I wish you all the best. This is going to ring hollow. It's a perfectly appropriate sentiment, but given the context, it's not going to sound sincere. And he says, thank you for all you did. That's appropriate also. He should have started with that before he fired them and showed more sincere gratitude and more sensitivity to what they were going through. This was a catastrophically bad presentation for this guy if you judge by the outcomes. It went viral on social media. He became a laughingstock. Other evidence came to light about his bullying and other kinds of bad behavior as a CEO. And now I just read in the news this morning that he is taking time away from the company. I don't know whether he'll be fired. He may be a co-owner and a founder, so I don't know whether they can fire him. But this just goes to show you that there are a small number of interactions and conversations in our life. Sometimes they're called crucial conversations or critical conversations. But this small number of conversations has a disproportionate impact on our life outcomes. It's like these key moments in our life where if we perform well, there's a gigantic upside. And if we perform poorly, there's a gigantic downside. I'm sure he regrets the way this went. He regrets not preparing. I read that his head of PR and his head of communications both quit. Now, I don't know why, whether that's because they advised him and he didn't follow their advice, or they felt responsible for this because they didn't prepare him, or whether they prepared him and he ignored them. I'm not sure. But the whole thing began to fall apart, and now he's sort of the poster child for bad governance and insensitive corporate leadership. My initial reaction, one of the reasons I said this isn't perfect, but it's not horrific, is because I've seen hundreds of people try to break bad news, mostly doctors and nurses and other healthcare professionals, as I train them how to break bad news. And my experience is the vast majority of them are not that good at it. It's a very difficult skill to master. So I have sympathy when people don't perform perfectly. And I would suggest that if you think about how well you would handle this kind of conversation, many of you wouldn't handle it that well. Many of you may be very empathic and could do it better, but this is a difficult conversation to do well. He did it extremely poorly. The key is to prepare, is to huddle up with a group of people to think about what the questions are, what the emotional concerns will be, and how you're going to address them, then to practice, and then to go into this conversation. He appears to have done none of this, and the consequences are catastrophic for him. I'm sympathizing a little bit with him, but it's the 900 employees who lost their jobs that we should really sympathize with. If you like videos like this about communication skills, please like this video, share it with your friends on social media, subscribe to the channel. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you next time.